I'm very pleased to have three speakers here today, Phoebe, Patrick, and Drew, and we're going to have them each do a brief self-introduction in a second. But certainly, what this session is titled, "Overcoming the Complexity of Global Expansion." I think we hear this from brands all the time in terms of it's a big world. Again, how do you prioritize all of the issues related to cross-border and global e-commerce? You can't do it all at once. I think for many of you who have been built your careers within the digital and e-commerce space, you're very familiar with, okay, well, we need to kind of decide what do we do this year versus what needs to kind of get pushed off to next year. So it's wonderful here for me to have the three speakers here today. I'm going to start with Drew, if you want to give a quick self-introduction.
Sure. Well, thanks very much, Jim, and hi, everybody. My name's Drew Labrosse. I'm with Digital River. I've been in the global e-commerce and payment space for about 10 years now, and I work with a lot of our clients on expanding for the first time or for the 50th time. So working on challenges like localizing checkout experiences and finding the right payment mix is a lot of what I focus on.
Great, and let's go to Patrick first, and then we'll go to Phoebe.
Yeah, so thank you. Hello, everybody. So I'm Patrick Frith. I work with Avalera. We're outside. We've got the orange booth outside. And I'm responsible for helping customers and partners solve their cross-border problems, specifically around item classification, duty and tax calculations, restricted products, that sort of thing. So, we integrate directly into our clients' checkouts, and my friend here, Drew, is a partner of ours. So our web of integration is extensive across different organizations and partners.
Great, and Phoebe, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Phoebe. I'm the founder and CEO of Attitude. We are our sustainable lifestyle brand focused on super soft, breathable, and antimicrobial sustainable textile-made bedding, loungewear, and bath products using our proprietary clean bamboo textile. We started actually from Australia and then grow into the US market a couple years ago and still operating on both markets today.
Yeah, continue a little bit, Phoebe. So again, the Australian origins, the US was the first international market for you, was it?
Yes, US was our first, or New Zealand is like when you are started from Australia, so Australia and New Zealand is like almost the same market, but US is the first big international market that we go full on a couple years ago.
Well, give us a little bit of that history. So, as the founder, you clearly had a vision for how you wanted to kind of expand globally. U.S. market, made a lot of sense, I would imagine, from especially for the sustainable product that you have developed. But what were some of your considerations, as a CEO, kind of saying, okay, we need to expand internationally, but we need to do this in a smart way. We only have limited resources. How did you weigh this out with your co-founder, partner, or other parts of the management team in deciding?
Yeah, I think at that time, so I started Attitude actually, it's almost 7 years ago from Melbourne, Australia. At that time, just see there's opportunity for a launch into the market to provide a more sustainable textile in the home sector. There's already a lot of fashion brand pushing that background, but it's a bit lacking in the home sector. So I think there's great opportunity there. So it took me a few years. I refined a textile, first launched in Australia because I lived in Australia at that time. But also we quickly see really good tractions, not only from the Australian market, also in a time there's 30% of revenue actually come from the US market without us actually doing paid ads. It's all organic. So definitely we see the US consumer also already proven they have a need for this product. There's a market there, so it's kind of already de-risked. So at that time when we finally launched in the US, officially 30% of revenue are US people buying on Australia side, shipping from Australia warehouse. They're paying $30, $40 and they still buy it. So we think when we can offer a localized service, has the .com launched, use local 3PR to offer free shipping, free return, we will definitely see a quick growth of the US market, because it's 15 times bigger market size than Australia just by population. So that's end of 2017. I think it's November, so we launched .com and start shipping locally from US. And I moved also to US mid of 2018, and then really focus on the growth here. So in the last 3 years, we grow 16 times. So the majority growth come from the US market. So we really choose the route for the US market. You have to be here and do everything locally, because this is a very sophisticated, competitive market. So we just have to do things right.
You know, we often talk about the need for a brand, any brand, in their international expansion to really understand what's their brand equity in the marketplace, starting with just awareness and traffic and so on. You know, but was that something that you know was a big part of, again, the U.S. plans when you think back to 2018 or so?
Yes, that's definitely. I think definitely, luckily, the trend at that time is for consumers really looking for sustainable products, but at the same time, high quality and price competitive. So I think the product we offer really hit all these marks. So, and also we did a lot of work on marketing, branding, of course, SEO and also paid search, building our social presence, a lot of branding involved. So kind of quickly build our brand awareness here in the US market. Yeah, we also see a lot of orders come from Canada. Yeah.
Good. We can talk about that as well. So tell us how the past 2 years, you know, during the pandemic, you know, have been. We've certainly seen, you know, a number of home-related brands. Crate and Barrel is an easy example. Have some of their best years ever. As you know, you probably know this yourselves. You know, investing in your home. If you're going to be working, living, you know, playing there, you know, then people were doing that. So have the past 2 years been an accelerated growth for you?
Yeah, definitely in 2020 for us. I think we almost tripled that year. So, but of course, there's a lot of hard work have to put in to make sure your supply chain can catch up. Of course, we have our fair share of out of stock or slow shipping days, but overall, I think we captured that opportunity that year. So even right till now, we still only ship to Australia and Canada, because historically, Australia has more stock, has more offering. US and Canada has grown so fast. We just constantly keep catching up that we don't have enough stock to open to more other international opportunities from the US side. But I think now our supply chain also grow with us. We're ready. Actually, this year we start to look more open to shipping more international markets from the US side.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk more about that. But let's kind of flip to this slide here, and Patrick, you know, like explain, you know, what you've been in the global e-commerce space for a long time. So, explain how you guys think of, you know, this maturity curve.
Yes, I think this will resonate with everybody in the auditorium because, you know, you and the companies that you represent lie somewhere on this curve, this maturity curve. And, you know, we were just hearing from Phoebe when she started out, you know, right the left-hand side of this, as you're looking at it, of this curve, you see the domestic, first and foremost, you see the domestic expansion, and you make those decisions about how you're going to expand domestically. Normally it's regional, you know, by state or by coast. You look at marketplaces and distributors. Your revenue goes up, you start growing, you want more control. So then you launch into direct to consumer. That brings headaches, obviously, because you're now having to fulfill and you're having to manage shippers and things like this. So, but then, you know, you continue to grow and you make enhancements to that. You know, delivery times, returns, you know, this sort of thing. And then the country that you started is no longer big enough for you, and you want to go international. So you want to break barriers, and you want to go overseas. There's a market for your product overseas. So that's when we see a big jump, when organizations move from the domestic environment, which they're very familiar with, into international. That brings even more complexities. There's currencies, there's language. You mentioned, Australia and New Zealand, very much the same. Language unites them, and the trade between those two countries unites them. But when you go beyond that, into you have to think about customer services. You need to have people stationed around the world, and you can do that through marketplaces and distributors. Eventually to D2C, you need fulfillment. You need a network, a good carrier to help you fulfill all those orders, and then you move into sales and payments and currencies, which I know Drew's going to touch on shortly. So we see this, and we as an organization, we are there to help customers through that maturity curve, because as you can see there, the complexity does increase. It becomes a headache for organizations who are focused on getting products out, better products, listening to their customers. So we help take away those headaches where we can.
I think we've seen and use ourselves, this type of a maturity curve as well. But I think it's been interesting for us to see how squeezed it is, right? So we see so many, again, DTC, brands are global from day one. So you don't have that luxury of kind of growing out your domestic business before you kind of, launch internationally. So I think it'll be interesting. We sometimes, see, brands, again, who start almost at the far right-hand side of your curve here because they've already gone global distribution. So what we know is that it's not a nice, neat, linear, straight curve, and I think that's kind of what we've been living. But again, it is certainly part of we know the business case to again go to your senior executives to get the budgets for global expansion. You need to have that that roadmap that says here's how we're going to really make use of those precious resources. I want to shift a little bit to ask Phoebe a little bit of the whole sustainability kind of origins again. I think it's fantastic just that we've been able to touch upon this in all the morning sessions so far, and certainly over the past couple of years, we've just seen how sustainability is just a top priority for brands. How did you, think of this originally, and how did you get started? And by the way, congratulations! I understand that you just have reached a B Corp certification. Congratulations!
Thank you. So I think the idea of Attitude came to me 7 years ago, back in Melbourne, Australia, when I was also shopping for my own home on the market. Then, so the silky soft, affordable, luxury home products, but using sustainable textile at that time just does not exist. So again, with that entrepreneur instinct, okay, well, there's a need here. And I know the textile space. Before I started Attitude, I've been working for a big international company, helping them develop textile products in Asia for over a decade. So that's when the idea hit me. I think that there's a need for a consumer here, and there's no one's providing it. And I definitely see the bigger trend is going there. So I'm glad I'm right. I'm very glad to see the consumers are really want everything more sustainable these days. So it took a few years. So we're using the most sustainable plant bamboo and are using a closed loop fabrication system that recycle and reuse water 200 times in the system. So the end result of the textile is super soft, breathable, but also super sustainable. It only used 2% of the water, the cotton needed from plantation to the final products. So, and also only emit 50% of the carbon cotton needed. So in 2021, the water we saved by consumers buying our clean bamboo products instead of cotton measure up to 7 million bathtubs. That's a lot of water saving. And then we know there's lacking of water all over the world, right? There's a water crisis, not to say it's also save a lot of carbon. We also offset all our carbon emissions from the production and also our operation. So the product, luckily, out of the gate, it's a low carbon product, but we also still offset any impact it has. And then to offset, to be carbon neutral, we have to calculate all our impact on the operation side. Then interesting find, or not interesting, most actually come from transportation. And especially if you do a lot of air shipping, then that's like quickly add up. So we have an internal guardrail that we will avoid a bulk ship our products by air as much as possible, but that need very accurate projection and smart buying. So you're not, oh, we are out of stock, we have to ship, hundreds of cartons into the US, then your carbon emission just shoot out of the roof. So, but however, shipping to international consumers one by one, probably air shipping can't be avoided. So I really hope the whole carriers industry, they can also switch to using more sustainable way to airship cargoes, parcels.
You mentioned that as an internal guardrail. I mean, I'm always curious on kind of KPIs and metrics, whether that is overall kind of part of your corporate sustainability and obviously now with your B Corp, certification. But I'm wondering with, some of your team, are they, again, measured by certain KPIs, related to sustainability? And can you share any of those?
Yeah, definitely. We have our internal sustainability committee, which was shared actually by team members. We also have DEI committee, but we also have our impact pod, which kind of lead by me. So we have goals, specific KPIs on that, especially like try to lower our carbon emissions. We know as we grow, it might be you will have more carbon footprint, but kind of the portion is if you double in size, but your carbon emission do not double, maybe only increase 50%, that it means you are more efficient. Or constantly when we develop a new product, we also look at the impact of the new material as low as possible. So that will be a KPI for our head of product. And also one thing we really love about B Corp is it's give you a really sophisticated framework that you can calculate and measure yourself against. And how to improve year on year. So they will reassess you every 3 years. So really keep companies on their tipping toes. So you have to keep progressing, right? Get higher score, not to lose your status after 3 years. And it not just measure your a company's sustainability, but also your people policy, your social impact. So it's a very well-rounded system. So we really like it. And also the community of it, so people can share knowledge around how to do better.
Drew, I don't know if you can kind of provide some commentary on what you're seeing from, Digital River works with such a broad range of, companies. How much does sustainability kind of, factor into, the companies you're talking to?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And certainly sustainability is important for a lot of the brands that Digital River works with, not necessarily as a core value proposition, but just as a core tenet of who they are as a company and the premier brands that they represent. So when we think about the experience that a brand is offering when offering a customer purchase online, it's really important to really provide the best possible experience local to wherever that person is coming from, whether you're selling across borders or domestically. Because when people think about your brand in that context of quality, they want to think about every aspect of your brand in that context. So if sustainability is a core tenet, which we do see among a lot of our clients, particularly actually along the electronic lines, they want to have their commerce experience really be in line with what they're setting an expectation as a brand.
Before we jump into this slide here, Patrick, I want you to weigh in a little bit on the sustainability side, because we had some discussion around, what that could mean from a tax standpoint.
Yeah, so you're quite right, Jim. What we're seeing is a movement by governments towards supporting sustainability. In fact, the WTO, 46 members of the WTO, are actively in negotiations over the environmental goods agreement, which will essentially will eliminate tariffs on environmentally preferred materials. Furthermore, at COP26 in Glasgow last year, there was a big push. 50 brands, NGOs, retailers, suppliers backed textile exchanges request for policy change on environmentally preferred products, and you can see where this is going. Tariffs will be eliminated on these type of products. Tariffs will remain on the opposite end of the scale, the environmentally unfriendly products. So as a consumer, you're going to be getting that relief, that tax benefit when you're buying the product, making cross-border sales a lot more easier, and they will become more favorable products with preferred rates, if not eliminated altogether.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to kind of see if some of these, tax breaks, really are forthcoming or not. I'm not sure why this seems to want to advance on its own. But let's talk towards these complexities. Drew, again, I think, the iceberg slide is probably going to need a sustainability, the text box, pretty soon here. But talk to us about these complexities below the surface.
Well, I think I could keep everybody here all day if we wanted to go through every aspect of the iceberg. So we'll spare you that. It's definitely different based on where you are in your expansion journey. So when I think about and when Digital River thinks about expansion, you really have to think about the experience you're cultivating, and then you also have to think about the performance that you're looking for and how are you going to access that market. So if you're towards the front end of that curve and you're just starting to look at international expansion for the first time, let's say you don't have the resources of a multi-billion-dollar company, but you still want to have a good brand presence. Your main focus is really going to be on localizing the checkout as much as you possibly can, to have the right types of languages, the right types of currencies, and a payment mix that is good enough for that market. So if you're coming from the US to Europe, for example, and you set yourself up with a cross-border experience, if you've got the right languages in place and you've got credit cards and PayPal in place, you're going to end up capturing about 80 to 90% of that market with that experience. If you go towards the farther end of that maturity curve, you've been in that country for a while, you've got distribution, you're in retailers, and you're really looking to try to improve your overall experience and round out that final aspect of kind of the brand's checkout, you're going to start to look at things like offering alternative payment methods. So online banking is incredibly popular across a lot of Europe. It dominates Germany by about 30%, in fact. You'll see more express checkouts. So the prevalence of Apple Pay and Google Pay are going to continue to increase alongside of the prevalence of PayPal, and we're going to see a shift away from credit cards more. We'll see a large prevalence of buy now and pay later. So in the last couple of years, that payment method and category has doubled year over year for about 3 years. And for those that are apparel sellers or retailers, you're going to see that actually being about a 15% preferred payment method. So as you look at trying to figure out how do I extract the maximum value from these places, you're going to really try to focus a lot on the payment experience within that localized checkout. With that comes a layer of complexities, and I'm certain Patrick will talk about this a little bit too, but you have to have the right tax infrastructure set up. So you need to have, a lot of cases, multiple entities and a registration for each market that you're going to do business in. If you're on the more immature side of that curve, you might not be ready to really put those in place or need them, but you'll still want to focus on the right cross-border experience of being able to get through customs and duties and have the customer prepay those so that the UPS guy isn't holding his hand out at the door and saying, you owe me 10 more euro, right? Nobody wants that. So whether you're kind of just getting started or already in those markets, there's a way to offer a local experience that's going to be great for your customers and then build upon that as you get more mature and start to focus more domestically. And of course, there are plenty of choices for that. There's a lot of best-of-breed providers in the industry that you can partner with to help do that. You will see more brands starting to kind of do it yourself when you're on the far end of that spectrum. But what you'll end up with in that case is probably managing, 3, 4, 5 different merchant accounts, a different integration for each payment, a myriad of 15, 20 tax registrations, multiple entities. And so you end up needing to staff a lot in your finance and accounting departments to be able to manage those things if you choose to own that journey versus partner.
We see certainly that focus on localized checkout being really a must-have, for every brand that's going global. Phoebe, what keeps you up at night as CEO? Again, when you think of international.
Yeah, I think still right now is still the potential disruption in the supply chain and the logistic chain. So right now there are still places in the world being locked down by COVID. or the war is going on and still going on and putting on pressure on the logistic. So that will hinder our ability, well, not right now, but if things get escalating, could hinder our ability first to produce product in time or to ship to the customer in time. So that's what's keep me up in night, just constantly thinking of it. So one way we tackle it to start to diversify our supply chain, to bring it more nearshore or put in different regions in the world. So if one region has something trouble, that you can rely on other regions. So the goal maybe probably each region, no one region would account for over 30% of the total capacity to just be safe. So if one region has trouble, you only lose 30% of your capacity at the most, not your whole supply chain was tanked and then you can't ship to consumers, and that won't be a good experience.
Right. So kind of a balanced portfolio approach, in other words. Yeah, very, very interesting. Let's kind of go to this, last slide and ask Drew and Patrick to talk towards this top 10 list.
Yeah, so to summarize, at the baseline, you want to have an experience that has the appropriate language set and a few of the right payment methods and currencies to really have something that's not going to insult your customers. Whether you're doing this cross-border, whether you're doing it domestically across the world, you really have to have those core tenets. When you are successful, you're effectively representing your brand and this channel, of which is frankly the tip of your spear in a lot of ways, right? This is the channel that you own and control beyond all other places that you're selling. This is the place where if you're going to show the best possible experience, this is what exemplifies your brand on the internet. So you really want to focus on getting those right, because what you're going to see is a magnification of your brand across other channels. So not only will you be able to facilitate repeat purchasers and extract a higher customer lifetime value in your direct channel, you'll boost your brand so that when somebody goes and finds you on Amazon or eBay or Target, they'll be able to identify with that strong experience that they found with you originally online. You really want to try to own that relationship as much as you can. And the best way to do that is to have the right type of checkout experience on your site.
And picking it up from the checkout experience and what you present to your customers, the buyers. We're seeing enormous movement towards the presentation of duties and taxes and landed costs. So your buyers know what they're in for. There's no surprise at the other end. Shipments don't get held up. Carriers making phone calls, get your checkbook ready. We can't deliver this until you settle a debt. And that very unpleasant experience, which I'm sure all of us as buyers have experienced at some point. So getting that right, getting that transparent, put up front, very important. And it also mitigates the risk for the seller, because you're on the hook. You're on the hook for the duty. You're on the hook for the taxes. Someone's going to come after you for it. And if you haven't collected it from the buyer, then you're in a bind. You're in a financial bind there. So that's important. And the follow on from that is then you have more flexibility in your shipping. You can ship DDP. Your shipments can just sail through customs. Duties and taxes are paid. They're covered. You get invoiced for it. You're okay with that because you've already collected it at checkout. So that whole experience from click to porch, a lot more smooth. And we're certainly seeing a movement towards that, because at the end of the day, you've got to keep, as you know, you've got to keep your customers happy and give them the best possible experience.
We unfortunately don't have enough time to kind of go into more details on this, but certainly encourage you to talk to Drew and Patrick, after the session. Phoebe, I'd like you to kind of close out the session here by just telling us a little of, what's next, for Attitude, from an international standpoint.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we feel we are ready to ship to more international markets this year, but definitely our approach, we're a small and lean team still. Our approach will be, we do what we do best, the brand awareness, marketing, provide a high quality sustainable products, have enough stock, but we will work with experienced partners to handle the actual tax and checkout and then the shipping part. They do their best so to be able to provide consumers a seamless cross-border experience. We will not try to chew on all those ourselves. We definitely would utilize a good vendor for that. That's the plan.
Well, as we said, it takes a village, and I think that's certainly an underlying theme, like of Guelph this year. I think even more than ever, as the revenue opportunities around the world keep getting bigger, knowing that you can't tackle it yourself. You kind of need to look to the subject matter experts on all these. So I want to thank Drew, Phoebe, and Patrick for joining us here on stage.